Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Aaron Gordon here, and we are back here with the Aaron Gordon podcast. I have my special guest here, Rachael Gregory. She was an Indiana All-Star. She played basketball at Buffalo University as well as Coastal Carolina, and she is now finishing up her third degree at University of Illinois, Champaign. How's everything been?
It's been going well. It's pretty good.
So obviously, you've been a state champion, you've been an Indian All-Star, you've been all that great stuff. How did you fall in love with the game of basketball?
It started really little, and I think growing up in Indiana, it's not hard to fall in love with basketball because it's everywhere. But I remember watching Reggie Miller with my dad, which is why I wore 31 in college. And I watched Reggie, Tamika Catchings, and I was like, hey, I want to do that one day. And that's how I just kind of fell in love with it.
So, a lot of people may or may not know this about you, but you were a multi-sport athlete. I grew up, going to games at NC. And one day I was shocked when I saw you playing volleyball. And I was like, I thought she played basketball. Like, isn't she about to be an Indian All-Star or something? And I'm like, I'll see you playing volleyball. What has that been like? How'd you get into all those different sports? And what led you to do that at a high level all throughout high school?
Yeah, so I actually played volleyball and I ran track in middle school. My mom played those sports and I'm like, I want to try that out. So I played in middle school and then I continued to play in high school right up until about my junior year when I was like, I really want to make basketball my main goal. But I loved volleyball. I loved running track at NC. Those were great experiences. And I think it's good to kind experience different sports throughout your childhood.
What was it like being one of the top sprinters in the state?
It was just fun. It was fun. I don't think I really paid attention to what my times were, where I was ranked. To be honest, I personally think I was better at track, but I loved basketball more. And so I was always like, hey, I'm going to have fun with my teammates in track, but like basketball season, it's time to go.
So do you think the relationships, because I know for me, the relationships with my friends, because that led me to run track my 8th grade year. Is that kind of how it was for you with volleyball and track?
Yeah, it was. There's a great group of girls on both teams and they made it fun. And, sometimes we have those long bus rides to Northern or Southern Indiana tournaments and stuff. So they definitely made it fun. I really enjoyed playing.
What would you say is the hardest practice out of all three?
Oh gosh. They're different because, you can go through a full basketball season and be running sprints and stuff like that. And then I got to track and I'm like, why do I feel out of shape? They're just different. But I think it helps because some of the skills do overlap. So track did help with my conditioning, even though it's a different type of running, and volleyball helped with my explosiveness. So they kind of overlap.
So when did you feel like you were getting really good at basketball, and when did you feel like you knew that you wanted to play Division I basketball?
I knew I wanted to play at the college level when I entered high school. I just didn't know if I was good enough to play D1. I knew that I wanted to play, but I'm like, I just have to keep working hard. And I didn't get my first offer until the summer before my senior year. I got a couple of letters here and there, but right before my senior year, I started kind of took off. So, that's when I really said, hey, I can do this. And I went on a couple of visits and eventually chose Buffalo.
What was that process like, coming into a big school like North Central and seeing all these other girls who at the time were going Division I, and obviously you had Naraya who played with you, she ended up playing Division I. What was that like coming in with a lot of competition and a lot of people that, were going to be successful?
I think you have to find your special point where you can make an impact on the court. For me, that was defense and that was offensive rebounding. And then through that, everything else kind of took off. So, some people might have said, hey, she scored 17 points today, but it was because I got 4 O boards and put the layup back in. So I found what I was really good at, and then I made it work for the rest of my game.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was in 8th grade, when you guys won state, first off, talk to me about that entire experience, because overall, that was actually one of my favorite teams because it seemed like you guys just seemed to click like perfectly. And the funniest part was your guys' season started like a month before the men's team did with Ronnie and Patrick and them, and your guys' ended like 3 or 4 weeks after.
Yeah.
And I was like, like I was talking to Ronnie and Patrick teasing, and I was like, that's embarrassing.
Well, hey, they got us first to the state championship because they got one in 2010. So
that was your sophomore year? Yeah, that was your sophomore year.
Technically, they beat us to the punch with that one, but that was a crazy year. We had, I think, 4 Indiana All-Stars just in the senior level from NC, and then we had 2 juniors with Celeste and Darius. I just think that was a great year for NC basketball overall. But with our team, I think, we had fun like off the court, but when it was time to practice, we were just locked in. And it wasn't always easy. Like we had our ups and downs. I think every team has their ups and downs, but it's how do you adjust from some of the losses and make those changes so you can win at the next one.
So what was it like? Because obviously when Amber Harrison and Brianna Bass left, there was a little bit of a dip, and I think like in attendance and the appreciation of NC women's basketball. What was that like to, your freshman year, you guys don't have that many people at your game, to your senior year, building up, most of your games had big crowds, and, what was that entire process like, just from your freshman year all the way to your senior year?
It was awesome. I think that anytime, particularly with women's sports, you can get attendance up. And show people like this is how great these experiences can be. I think that's really important. I think that over the past couple of years, I'd say over the past decade, there's been more exposure of women's sports, and there's still room for it to grow. But to see that change from my freshman year to my senior year was incredible. I think the support was awesome. When you would go to the guys' games, you would see like the full crowd, and then that was us, like our senior year. And just to get the support from our Panther family was really incredible.
Yeah. And, that's like piggybacking off like with me. Cause like I was that kid who used to run around at the games too. Like by the time then I was like grown. So I wasn't a little kid by the time, you were a senior. But like even when Brianna Bass and Amber Harris, when they were going to the games, I used to go to all the games. I used to love attending those games, and I think like that helped me throughout my career. Seeing men's and women's games, and like that's one thing with me. That's the reason why I always attend. Like even still now, like I attend our women's team games. I attend Fever games, and I attend all that stuff.
Yeah, it's important. It's, there are a lot of female athletes doing great things and playing good basketball. We see our soccer team, our national soccer team, just doing incredible things, both on and off, the field of competition. So, any support of women's sports, I think is support for sports as a whole.
So talk to me about, your commitment to going to Buffalo out of high school. What was that entire process like? Obviously, I know you said that you didn't get an offer until going into your senior year. What was that entire process like?
Yeah, so there were several schools out east that I had offers from. And so right before school started senior year, my family and I, we all jumped in the truck and we visited all those schools. We took a week and a half. And I just fell in love with the campus. I fell in love with the opportunities that they had. A lot of people don't realize how big of a campus Buffalo is, and they don't realize like how many different things it can offer. I think now there's been more exposure with football doing well, men's and women's basketball doing well. They're on the national stage. But, out of all of them, I felt like that was the best school that I would enjoy both basketball wise and academically as well. Because my parents always told me, if there ever came a point where you couldn't play anymore, would you want to still be at that school? And I could firmly say yes for Buffalo.
So overall, we know that, you had an injury your freshman year. What was that like, sitting out your sophomore year? Obviously you graduated in 3 years, so we know what you were doing your sophomore year. You were hitting the books, but what was that entire process like from, your freshman all the way to the end of your sophomore year?
Yeah, it was tough. I did not, I knew it would be tough physically, but I did not expect like how tough it would be mentally to come back from an injury, because you go through the rehab. A lot of athletes have done it before, whether they've had a surgery or just turned an ankle or, sprained something. But like that's something that we're used to. But I think it was just really tough to not be out there and have those experiences with my teammates. And sometimes it can be, a lot of athletes talk about this, isolating. Like you're still on the bench, you're still cheering people on, but like sometimes you just want to be out there. But it was a lot of hard work. And like you said, a lot of studying too. I'm like, well, I can't play, so I may as well take an extra class here and there. But I'm glad that I got that experience, because that teaches you perseverance and hard work. And so, got through it, but it was tough.
So what was that like when you graduated and you had an opportunity to play another 2 years? What was that process like of trying to find another school? And, how did that entire process go? Because I know, now you're going to see a lot of kids with this COVID year that are going to want to explore different options. How did you go about that process and finding a grad school that you wanted to go to?
Yeah, same kind of process. If I got hurt or just something happened where I couldn't play basketball anymore, would I want to be there? With Coastal, it was the same thing. The ability to play basketball was the cherry on top. So I'm grateful for that staff for recruiting me. And I had a great visit down there. I think, once again, Coastal is a gem. And we've seen with our baseball team and our football team, the Chanticleers on the national stage as well. But yeah, it's a great school, and it's a great community too around it. And it helps that you can kind of take a study break and go to the beach every once in a while.
I know that was tough. So, how tough was it, to get your MBA, to go to Coastal Carolina and to stay focused while you're doing all that, while having already graduated? I know that had to be a little tough of like, you're near the beach, you already graduated, you know what I'm saying? So how was that process like, getting up every single day, still having to go through the grind as if, you were a freshman again?
Yeah. To be honest, that mentality wasn't tough, because I got to play the sport that I love. Mm-hmm. And I would wake up, we had 6 a.m. practices, maybe from 6 till 9. And then I had night classes from 6 till 8. So in between there, it was nap, eat, maybe get a lift in or get some cardio, sleep and eat again, and then go to class. And if we had a game, then I would, miss class if that overlapped. But no, I loved playing. And so it wasn't tough to transition into that.
Would you recommend, a lot of students having night classes? Like, how did you like having night class? Because I did it. I really did not like doing night class. I thought I would, but I really didn't want to do it, especially after a long day of practice and all that. Because I always thought like I'd rather just, go to practice first and then do all that later. But no, for me, it sucked. What was that process like for you?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like, I think it depends on what time your practice is at, because if you got like an afternoon practice and you're going straight from a 3-hour practice into a night class, that can be tough. Because you're kind of like sneaking dinner in between. And like, if you have an exam, like you're going straight from basketball to an exam. But at Coastal, it kind of worked out, because we also had people going into the medical field. And so some of their clinicals and their classes were midday. So our early morning practices gave me that gap in between. It also helps, like if you're a morning person, which I am, and you're able to like get stuff out of the way, then you can relax until your night class. That's also a good thing too. But it just depends on kind of how you're wired, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, that would still be tough for me. So obviously, you had a really historical career, you've done all this stuff, we all know that you probably could have played, professional basketball. What led you not to play after college?
Yeah, so I played for a little bit in Spain. I got the opportunity to play over in Spain. It was in a small town just south of Barcelona, but I got hurt. I got a concussion, and I've already had a history of concussions, and so I made the tough decision to stop playing for health reasons. did I want to play longer? Absolutely. But I also thought about like my future and the implications of getting, a head injury again might not be good long term. So I just decided to, take the time, recover, and go back to school and, start my second career, I guess, outside of basketball.
So obviously, what was the reasoning in you, going back to school and getting your master's?
Yeah, I got my undergrad or my undergraduate degree at Buffalo in communication,
Communications, yeah.
and I knew that I want to get my graduate degree in communication as well. And at Coastal, they didn't offer a master's degree in communication at the time I was there, so I went into business, which is another field that I'm really interested in. And I think communication and business go hand in hand. So when I went to play in Spain, I always knew that once I was done playing, I would probably go back to grad school. It just happened a little bit earlier than I expected it to. So Illinois is a great school, great department. And I'm really excited that I got the opportunity to learn here.
So with you being a multi-sport athlete, I know you're big on the Olympics, and, we're going to get a little bit off of, your journey now, because we all know your journey.
Yeah.
What do you think about, the Olympics this year and about them having it? Do you think that they should have it or that they shouldn't have it?
I think that's a really tough situation. I think, things differ between the country that you're in, because some countries have very, very low rates and different policies. Some countries have very, very high rates of COVID. I know that we have the vaccine coming out. So, I don't know. I think if you're able to do something with player safety in a bubble like the NBA did, then, athletes have been working for 4 years for this, but at the same time, like, there's also a risk to public health, and we've lost so many people. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a perfect answer. And so I don't want to say one thing or the other, because it's just tough. And I think what this past year has shown us is that there is no perfect answer to anything. Yeah. And so, I just hope that eventually those athletes that have been working for that long are able to compete safely at some point for, what they've been working for.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's just so much that I would say goes into this year's Olympics, because that's something that a lot of people on my channel have asked me on my YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. And, I literally get about like 2 or 3 just emails a day, just asking, can you cover more Olympics? Can you cover more Olympics? And it's like, I'm not even sure if we should even have it. I'm not sure if they're going to have it. I'm not, because it's like, it's weird that they have said nothing about it yet. There's been no promotion. So, I guess with a situation like this, we got to take it day by day.
Yeah. But I think, the whole past year has been like, let's just get till tomorrow and reassess from there. It's just been that kind of time that we're in.
So obviously a lot of people are basketball fans, and, we obviously have someone who played at a high level at all 3 levels with you. What do you think the state is of women's basketball? Not just only, in the WNBA, but, when it comes to overseas high school, collegiate basketball, what do you think is the state of women's basketball, and how do you think it could get better?
Yeah, I think that the sky's the limit. I look at like when I was in high school versus now, and I always say like exposure is key, because a lot of people don't realize how great something is until they see it. And so now that I'm like back home and I'm able to see that we have girls basketball on television in Indiana at a higher rate, that's really encouraging to see. I think we have, as usual, a ton of talent coming out of the state of Indiana. There always has been, and I think that's awesome. But at the college level and at the pro level, once again, I think it's exposure. We saw with UConn women's basketball, and it was the first time this season, I believe, that they were on the main FS1 channel live. And I think that that's so important, because we see a lot of men's basketball teams and rightfully so, they're on TV, but there's a lot of great games. The Big Ten is a huge conference. The Big East is a great conference. The SEC is incredible. And so is the Pac-12. And, those games and those athletes deserve to be seen with all the hard work. And so when I just kind of think about college and pros, we're here, but there's still room to grow. And there's always room to grow, but I'm really proud of all the athletes that I've seen this year and in previous years progressing our game.
Do you think you got a lot of exposure growing up, or do you think that there should have been a lot more room for more?
Me personally, or just at the team level? I didn't really I wasn't really concerned with exposure until I realized how important it was for college, like to make it to the college level. I just thought our family wasn't really familiar with the AAU system. My parents didn't play sports in high school. And so they thought, hey, just play your high school games and, maybe play a couple of AAU games here and there and you'll be good. And then I kind of got there and realized how that system worked. And so it was kind of like, I joined the Gym Rats, I believe, after my sophomore year. And that really helped me get to the level that I wanted to get to. Do I think I needed more exposure, in terms of people highlighting my games or my stats? No. We still won a title. I still got the experience to represent my state as an all-star. Everything else is just extra. Winning matters, banners matter, and we got that. So that's all that matters.
What was that feeling like once you guys won the state championship? Because I know not a lot of people have felt that feeling, very few, but especially, being a captain on a team, an all-star, what was that feeling like, especially finishing it out on your senior year?
Yeah, that's the best feeling, is to go out as the best team, as a senior. Also, when we first won, I was in shock because that game, not that I didn't expect us to win because I knew we could, but I was like, whoa, it really just happened. And so we had that tough overtime game. And then I remember, some family members calling and saying, did you win? The broadcast cut out. They had no clue that we had won.
That was at Indiana State.
Yeah, because we went into overtime that year. And I think because overtime went into their other programming, the Andy Griffith show came on or something. So, it was an incredible feeling. We came home, everyone was in the stands congratulating us, and, the support was awesome.
So what is one thing that, you would tell someone who was in your shoes, growing up, going through the same process that you went through?
I would tell them to find what they love to do. And that doesn't, I know we're talking sports and we're talking basketball, but
it doesn't have to be basketball. It could be really about anything.
Yeah. If you find what you love to do, that makes everything else come a lot easier. In my opinion, I think that I am lucky to have found basketball early because, some people, it may be music, it may be, performing arts, visual arts, other things, but I would say work hard at what you do. There will be some times where you have to make the decision to, long-term success. You have to give up some things that are short-term in order to make it to the level that you want to make it to. But if you get there, it's all worth it. So I would just say work hard and find something, outside of your sport that you also like to do, because when your entire identity is wrapped in your sport and, it gets taken away, that can be tough. So, find what you love, but find something else too.
How hard do you think it is when you're going through, what was one thing that you felt like you had to really stir away from for you to be successful? Just growing up through high school and in college that, everyone else, did or everyone else was able to do that you couldn't do or that you chose not to do?
Yeah, I wasn't naturally gifted. I wasn't someone who just had a knack for certain ins and outs of the game of basketball. Like I know basketball, but for some people, you know, like the flow and where everyone is supposed to be, like that's their thing. And that wasn't me. So I had to work extra hard at that, at learning plays, at, you know, learning how to handle the ball, because I played, you know, post when I was in middle school, but then I had to learn how to play, you know, the 3 spot as I got into high school and college. So I spent extra time, you know, working on my game, working on watching film and the knowledge of the game. And, you know, so I had to, you know, if I got up at 5 a.m., maybe I can't go hang out with my friends tonight, you know. There are a lot of experiences that you know, I didn't have, but that was my choice because basketball was my dream. So, you know, I remember my senior year and Coach Harrington, he was awesome. He got up, he would meet me at the gym at 6 a.m. and then we'd start class at 7:30, right after I'd finished my workout. And then we'd have a full day and then I'd go into practice and then go home and do my homework. By that time, I'm too tired to do anything else. But, you know, I loved it. So to me, it didn't feel like a sacrifice.
Was that the same thing when you went to college? Did you feel like you took those same things and brought it into college and that's what made it very easy?
For sure. Especially at Coastal, because in grad school, you know, there is less room for error. You have to be on your P's and Q's in grad school. And so there were just some things where I'm like, I got to go to bed, or I got to spend a little extra time prepping some meals because I know that I'm going to have grad school practice, weightlifting, and then maybe our team had some sort of like media thing or volunteering or something else. Like your days get jam-packed. So just being extra attentive to time and organization was really important.
So that's probably made this last year of your grad program pretty easy then, right?
No.
it made it harder?
No, the pandemic has made everything harder. It's weird. You know, I feel like I'm doing well academically, but you know, there's just certain things that are just tough in terms of being in front of the computer screen for hours upon hours when you're used to just, you know, sitting in a lecture, interacting with your colleagues and your classmates. It's just different. I'm grateful though, because we have a lot of people working really hard to make the transition easier. You know, a lot of people have worked really hard in situations that are just like unforeseen. So that's a good thing. But I'm not going to lie, it has been a tough year.
So, you know, last and final question, what do you see next in your career? Obviously, once you finish this degree, what do you see you doing next in your career? And what do you think you'll find joy in doing after this?
Yeah, I'd love to do something that involves community or teaching. Right now at Illinois, I have the privilege to teach 2 classes of public speaking, and I love doing that. You know, I think it would be great to do that at the corporate level, you know, teach people how to be effective and how they communicate. I love watching when people are like, hey, like I was really nervous about this, but you know, after time, I got more comfortable. So thank you. And like, that's really rewarding, seeing people happy with where they've started and then how far they've come. But also I love the opportunity to work in sports as well on the community relations side or the communication side. I think that would be awesome.
For sure. Thank you so much for joining in. This is Rachael Gregory here. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining the podcast. Hope to have you on some other time.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Thank you.